Well, I think it's about high time we take these conversations, we take these ideas, we wrap them up, bring them out into the shed, and put a bullet in between their eyes. Because today, we are giving a final trade update as to two of the names that a bunch of my favorite teams have been linked to the past few weeks. We're talking about my Vancouver Canucks, we're talking about my Montreal Canadiens, and we are talking about the New York Islanders, because we have ourselves a final word on some of the guys that the Islanders have that fans of the Canadiens and the Canucks were anticipating, hoping would be available in a trade and would be an option for their teams next year. Of course, if you've been following the channel for the past few weeks, you know we are talking about Bo Horvat, we're talking about Mathew Barzal. Those are the main two. You can toss Noah Dobson in there as well, but the idea floating around the block was the fact that the Islanders were in a pretty bad state of mediocrity after being a consistent playoff performer with Lou Lamoriello at the helm. The Isles kind of got stuck in a little bit of a limbo here. And because Lamoriello was so old, it was like, okay, well, that team's not going to go out there and rebuild anytime soon. For as long as Lou Lamoriello is still in New York, he is going to do his darndest to make sure that they are always staying competitive. Right? That was the idea percolating around. But inevitably, Lamoriello got the can. On top of this, he actually did make a trade to get younger earlier in the season. Brock Nelson got sent over to Colorado for a nice young prospect in Cal Ritchie, but ultimately it was too little too late. And after the Isles won the first overall pick with Matthew Darche, the new GM in state, it put a lot of questions up in the air with the Islanders team that was. Would they commit full on to the rebuild? Would they use their first overall pick of Matthew Schaefer as an opportunity to start down a new path? Would this mean that Bo Horvat, Noah Dobson, Mathew Barzal, these guys' future in Long Island was not guaranteed? And it's why we made video commentaries wherein we saw Vancouver analysts and writers and Montreal folks on social media debating whether or not a guy like Bo Horvat could be an appropriate ad for either the Habs or the Canucks. I know in Vancouver there was the entire, okay, would they really want to get Bo Horvat back type of thing? Would he really want to go back to Vancouver type of thing? But stylistically, when you think about what these teams need, they need second-line centers. And Bo would be a very good one. With all this in mind, though, we have ourselves a final trade update, a final word on Bo Horvat and the like when it comes to their relevance with the Vancouver Canucks and the Montreal Canadiens. Because Stefan Rosner went out there and posted this on the Hockey News earlier yesterday. New York Islanders GM Mathew Darche has yet to make a major move since being hired on May 23rd. However, according to The Athletic's Pierre LeBrun, two players who will not be involved in any major move, if one comes, are Barzal and Horvat. This article is actually titled, Islanders Mathew Barzal and Bo Horvat are not going anywhere. But of course, you understand that I couldn't read the title before reading the introductory sentence because that would take away all the suspense, right? Anyways, let's dive into what Pierre LeBrun spoke about on The Athletic. Mathew Darche has communicated with both star players that they are staying put. That's going to be disappointing for teams who are hoping to make offers on either. I think Montreal would have probably been one of those teams. But keeping both Barzal and Horvat is part of Darche's decision to not undergo a massive, long-term rebuild. He sees a team that can compete for a playoff spot next year. And, you know, that's a fine sentiment. It's one that I think you can reasonably get behind. Hey, this Islanders team has the first overall pick, that Matthew Schaefer's going to be really good. Even if you don't think he's going to be good right away, if the Islanders wanted to maybe trade the first overall pick away, they could probably get some really good assets in return, like a Lucas Raymond, for example. which is totally not a conversation we had yesterday, but if Darsh is really 100% dead set on being competitive with this version of the Islanders, with this personnel and this core group of guys, then it makes sense. Horvat, Barzal, Dobson, they're all good enough to help will a team into a playoff berth, especially if they get some immediate contributions from Matthew Schaefer. But it is kind of disheartening for Montreal Canadiens fans, as Pierre Lebrun so eloquently lays out here, because a lot of Habs folks were kind of thinking, okay, yeah, Bo could be a very reasonable target. Mathew Barzal could also be in there. And Vancouver folks were talking about, yeah, Bo would be a good target in Vancouver too. And Mathew Barzal would also be great. It's kind of the same conversation on both sides of the country. It's just, there does happen to be a bigger connection, I would say, between the Vancouver folks than the Montreal guys. I guess there is a connection with Barzal because there was the entire angle of Barzal learning French as a little kid because his dad secretly wanted him to play for the Canadiens when he became a pro hockey player. But then again, where was it that Barzal grew up? Coquitlam, BC, here in Vancouver. Okay, it's not in Vancouver, but it's around Vancouver, greater Vancouver area. So it's very obvious to see why Vancouver Canucks fans would have wanted a hometown local guy like Mathew Barzal in their organization. Bo, same thing, not a hometown guy, but a former captain. There is definitely a lot of value that both of these guys would have been able to provide. Let's finish off the article here because it is a fairly short one by Rosner. Mathew Barzal, who is coming off of an injury-riddled season that limited him to 30 games with 6 goals and 14 assists, is entering the third season of an 8-year deal worth $9.15 million a season. Bo Horvat, who had recorded 57 points in 81 games, is entering the third season of an 8-year deal worth $8.5 million annually. The expectation is that Darsh will be quiet this summer as he evaluates his roster. At his introductory press conference, Matthew Darsh shared that he believed the team as constructed could make the playoffs. If the Islanders can make the playoffs while also retooling, that seems to be the likely route, as opposed to selling off pieces and going for a top pick in the 2026 NHL Draft. And I think that's probably the right way to go here in this situation, because you gotta remember, the Islanders getting the first overall pick, that was a miracle in and of itself. They had like a 3.5% chance of getting that draft pick, and they got it. They were a 500 team this previously completed season. They had 82 points in 82 games. They were so much better than all these other teams that ended up finishing underneath them in the draft order of 2025. That when you think about it like that, it's like, yeah, okay, this team was kind of given a really big lottery ticket. Now they have a borderline franchise defensive level prospect on their hands that's going to be such an elite player for years to come. That is a huge shot of adrenaline in a positive direction. This is like those things on Mario Kart, the forward-facing arrows with the rainbow colors that make you go 10 times faster. That's exactly what this was. So for Matthew Darsh and the Islanders, I can totally understand if the philosophy here is not, okay, we need to go through an entire rebuild. It's instead, okay, maybe we don't need to go through a rebuild now because our team is pretty all right, but we also do have this first overall pick, and as long as everything falls into place and we're not afraid to make some bold moves, we should be okay. That does seem to be the way that Darsh is approaching this offseason. A much more, let's just say, precarious way to view the team and analyze whatever decisions could be made compared to Lou Lamoriello, but of course, that's to be expected. Lamoriello doesn't have as much of a timeline to work with when you think about him building a team for the long-term future. I'm trying to say that as nicely as I can. Like, Matthew Darsh is half the guy's age, essentially. So, there is time here. But for the New York Islanders, it seems like that is going to be the direction they decide to go down. They will try to build a team around Bo and Barzal. It sucks for Montreal Canadiens fans, though, and it does suck for Vancouver Canucks fans. And with all that in mind, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this final trade update for the New York Islanders, the Vancouver Canucks, the Montreal Canadiens, Bo Horvat, Mathew Barzal, and everything else in between. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.